Finally getting his turn on with the Tuneup Treatment, it is the rather obscure and lesser known model of the Stag Beetle series, KWG0D Adolphin REGRADED, with a kit of Stealth, Charge Blade, Hammer, Biped Legs, and the leg ability of Torturer, which buffs his base power for every negative ailment applied to the target. Now, I am going to be upfront right from the beginning and say, as well balanced and rounded as Adolphin's kit is, it is also rather scattered for what he has to offer and what he can use. But in the right hands, this is honestly something he can overcome very easily. Stealth is a support-based skill that will render him untouchable and untargetable for his next turn, allowing him to bypass any shields that are in play and attack anyone and attack his intended target instead of being intercepted by say someone who is using a shield or a counter. Charge Blade is a more conventional and more damage bonus reliant conventional melee skill, which upon use will consume a small amount of charge from their user's Metaforce gauge, but also grant a damage bonus relative to the percentage charged of the charge gauge for additional damage on top of that. And then Left Arm of Hammer is your conventional melee skill with an AoE, meaning it will damage all active parts equally and spread the damage across them, making it, even though it is good for peppering opponents, definitely not so great as a finisher for this very reason. The biped legs do grant Adolphin very solid and overall very decent coverage on all terrains very nicely, but the Torture ability is honestly very strange in this case as well, given that it relies on the enemy to have negative ailments, which Adolphin by himself is actually incapable of doing, which makes it rather tricky to use him as a pure set for this very reason. That being said, it is honestly recommended if you're going to use Adolphin to pair him off with someone who's able to use ailments such as Bug, Freeze, Deathlock, Hold, Wave, or so on, as a way that he can capitalize on this bonus as more like a team reliancy in this case. However, that being said, a lot of these drawbacks of Adolphin can be brought back and fixed moderately easily with, say, a Hunter or a Sniper nature medal over a speed-based one, so he can kind of serve as a self-sustain, or less something of self-sustaining for Metaforce sustain to use with the Charge Blade. But granted, at start, you will have to face the fact that if you do choose to use the Charge Blade early on in the fight, it will not have that high base damage until the fight starts drawing out longer and he has a charge to put behind it. With his tune-up based skills, he chooses more to capitalize on what he already has rather than actually adding anything new to his arsenal, which makes him a little more versatile in this case with what he is very good at. With his head, he has options of armor plus 500, cool plus 200, Stealth gets one additional turn while active, which is greatly recommended in this case, which allows him to stay hidden and out of sight for 2 turns, which makes him even more elusive in the shadows and makes him harder to touch for anyone that is choosing to attack him or prevent him from bypassing any shields that are in play. And then of course a +1 to additional head uses will also be nice as well, especially if you choose to capitalize on that extra 1 turn of stealth to make it easier for him to bypass anyone or get past any pesky guards. Right Arm of Charge Blade has access to armor plus 200, power plus 100, which naturally is very nice since he does have one of the higher end Charge Blade base damages, and then the damage plus bonus of plus 50 to Metaforce bonus when using Charge Blade, which will make his already rather dangerous sword arm when fully charged even more so dangerous on top of that. Left Arm of Hammer will have access to up to 300 to armor, plus 200 to power, and a passive of plus 200 to cool upon use. Personally with this, even though AoE skills make it really hard to count damage consistently, that base damage will definitely come in handy though to make every hit land, and the passive plus 200 to cool will allow him his already speedy self to actually close his cooldown a lot easier, since one of the drawbacks of Hammer is you cannot defend until the end of your cooldown. Legs arguably have a lot of the best bonuses there is, however, at plus 300 to armor, plus 200 to shoot resist, plus 200 to evade, which his legs already have a very high base stat in, which he can definitely capitalize on. His leg ability of Torturer does get a bonus as well, allowing plus 40 additional damage for every negative ailment applied, making his already rather dangerous leg ability already even more so threatening if in the right conditions. And then, of course, terrain, he does allow the ability to add S rank to prairie terrain, which gives him an additional bonus, which honestly isn't all that great in my opinion. You could honestly go without it, given that that biped legs already have A rank on prairie as it is, and an extra 10% bonus where it counts may be nice, but it's definitely not going to be game-breaking, in contrast to, say, getting the damage plus of Torturer and the extra evade to allow him to dodge and graze a lot more than he could before. That being said, revisiting his old pure and mixed parts scores, he originally was clocking at about a 6 out of 10 for his pure set and a 7 for his mixed, given again his scattered kit by itself does make using him rather tricky, unless you can build him with allies that he can capitalize on with this. That being said, however, factoring in his new tune-up bonuses, I have to bump his pure set score up to a 7.5, primarily given the fact that even though he won't be packing a lot of extra damage, that would be more game-breaking or any extra mobility, it does allow him to be a lot more sneaky with his attacks, allowing him to bypass shields or anyone a lot easily, and make him harder to target or touch on unless someone can really time that target well with the same turn that his stealth does wear off. As his new mixed parts score, on the other hand, I have to bump up to an 8 out of 10, given that even though his skills by themselves are rather tricky and rather scattered and difficult to capitalize on without the right allies, as mixed parts, you can capitalize on all these bonuses very easily with different parts. Say, for instance, using full charge for his right arm. Hammer, you probably will not use as often, if at all, unless it's more of an aesthetic thing for for what Adolphin offers. But the legs in particular with Torturer are something you definitely want to pack on with, say, an ailment fighter in particular, or an ailment fighter / fighter, to definitely capitalize on that damage bonus you would get. Examples of this might include, say, Deathlock, which applies 2 negative ailments as one example, and then pair these legs with Punish Arms to capitalize on that extra damage bonus.